Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. These are recorded live Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to catch the show live, see what goes on in between the news sections and things around there. But today we're going to jump right on into the Linux news. And we're going to start with the first point release of Ubuntu is out. This was really funny because OMG Ubuntu did an article, it was yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever this came out. It says 2404.1 is going to be delayed until early September. 2 hours later, 2404.1 is out. Like, okay, OMG Ubuntu. Maybe they did the one not expecting the other one to actually come out. It came out. Really, there's nothing major significant. The only significant thing in this for the regular Ubuntu users is they have a direct upgrade path now if you're on 2204. I guess they didn't have the upgrade path to 2204 to 2404. Using the built-in GUI upgrader, they said you could do it through the terminal, but it didn't have assurances because a lot of the core package-based differences in between them. But the 2401 release has that upgrade path. So now, as of if not now, then in the next couple of weeks, then you will be able to do a manual GUI upgrade with Ubuntu's assurance that things are going to work. So that's your major change. The other things are mostly related to the installer. They make changes to the seeded apps for tracks. The desktop installer gains OEM mode using auto install, and GNOME is the initial setup. And the 2404.1 Raspberry Pi images now use the GNOME initial setup. I'm not sure what they were using before. I thought they were using GNOME before, but I have no idea. But it's not anything major significant. There is obviously a new downloader, which will contain all of the cumulative updates up to this point in time. The Linux kernel is the same version. It says here 2404.1 does it include it? And they say, no, it's the same 6.8 branch. So you're not going to get anything new from that. So ultimately it's just some basic stuff. You'll be able to upgrade those 2204s to 2404s, so if you were looking for that upgrade path. Next up in the news, a long, weird Foss circle ends with Microsoft donating Mono to the Wine project. So this relates to the .NET framework required to run a lot of different things. And the article mentions so many people, like, look at all these names in here. We got Zymanian, Noviel, Sousa, Xamarin, I guess, Microsoft, now Wine. These are all the different owners of the Mono project, as they've been trying to keep things alive and moving to keep some of the legacy applications and the other .NET frameworks going. Well, Microsoft is like, we don't got time for this nonsense. They were basically going to put it into a non-active state on their GitHub repository. They decided, hey, they're just going to go ahead and donate the whole thing over to Wine. So now Wine is in control of the .NET framework. So this might actually have some really positive things coming in. If they have a lot more control of the base code, they might be able to actually successfully get more things running. I don't know. But and I'm not a gamer, and I don't really use Wine a lot. There's just not a lot of Windows applications I need on my day-to-day, so I don't really have a lot more to say about that. But moving on, there is this is an interesting piece of malware, like a lot of things that are kind of new and novel. Now, this one's only been seen since around 2022, but they have a new way of exploiting it where it stays persistent after reboots. And I have not been able to find any definitive way about how it's being spread, but most likely it's being spread by phishing websites and other things like that. So ultimately what this is using is it's using the UDEV rules. So the UDEV rules, the /dev is a directory that will look at device nodes on Linux. So when you plug in a USB drive, there's rules for that. So this is one of the things that Tails changed recently, for example, in the latest, was it the latest? I think it was the version before, or maybe it was 6 in general. I think it was 6 in general. Where in Tails, if you plugged in a USB drive, it would do nothing. You'd have to go into the menu and manually go to mount it. Whereas now you plug in the USB drive, and as long as the system is running, in other words, it's not suspended or asleep or something like that, as long as it's running, it will auto-mount a data drive. And that all does with UDEV rules. So what this particular piece of malware is doing is it is using the UDEV rules for a random number generator, which you would use anytime you're doing anything with cryptology. So anytime you run any application that would do that, or on system boot, it also triggers. It's going to run the code which reboots the malware into your computer. Now, this is probably more impactful on servers than anything else. And looking at the code analysis, it mostly is a backdoor for some certain industries. So they used it for credit card scraping. So if it's on a Linux server that's doing credit card stuff, you can do that. I think they saw it involved in, I think it was being used in like human resources intel gathering. So that's a little terrifying for all of us as we are sending in job applications. If it's scraping data out of human resource programs and systems, that could be kind of problematic. So that's kind of what it's doing, but it was a very interesting one in how it was staying persistent by utilizing the UDEV rules. Linus Torvalds is expressing regrets about merging Bcachefs. And mostly what he's dealing with is that there's some bugs, and instead of the code contributors issuing bug repairs, they were issuing these thousands of lines of new features and new changes and things that he's looking at going, this is crazy. And so in classic Linus style, we get some discussions going over. So basically looking at it, the fixes to pull request touches more than 1,000 lines of code. We're now more than halfway through the 6.11 cycle. Thus far, the first time the fixes pulled for Bcachefs have ever been submitted post-merge window is not the first time. It's strictly bug fixes, also heavier feature additions. So they're saying not only were they late, but they submitted more than just bug fixes. They submitted extra features and other things that were being introduced. So he says, yeah, no, enough is enough. Last poll was already big. This is too big. It touches non-Bcachefs stuff. It's not even remotely some kind of regression. At some point, fix something just turns into development, and that is the point. Nobody sane uses Bcachefs and expects it to be stable, so every single user is an experimental state. Bcachefs patches have become the kinds of lots of development during the release cycles rather than before it, to the point where I'm starting to regret merging Bcachefs. If Bcachefs can't work sanely within the normal upstream kernel release schedule, maybe it shouldn't be in the normal release upstream schedule. This is getting beyond ridiculous. So if you're really in love with Bcachefs, you might want to look for an alternative method of getting it, as it may be pulled out of the Linux kernel. So I don't know what's going on. Of course, this is yet another one of the file systems. This one is alleging that it's going to be a lot more stable. It's going to be able to rebuild, repair itself and things like that. So it is still a more experimental one. And on to our last story, of course, probably why many of you are here. We got 65 watching on Zatubies right now. Thank you. And so Plasma is starting to borrow from the worst elements of Windows. Now, it's already bad enough. I installed Neon today, and I want to have a look at 6.2 as soon as it comes out. So I installed Neon today on a virtual machine and ran all the system updates. And the default behavior, if you're running it through the GUI and Discover, you click the update, it will download everything, and they're like, reboot to install updates. So you reboot it, and the thing is like Windows. I'm sitting there staring at an update screen for, I think it took 15 minutes to install updates. Why on earth? Like, you can install updates in the background, like every other sane Linux distribution, and then reboot your computer to get access to that. Now, you can go into the settings and turn that off. You can update the system in the terminal. And frankly, I usually update my Linux systems in the terminal anyway. So this really wouldn't impact me if I wasn't doing everything by the KDE Neon book. But you go in there and it's just like, really, it's the worst part of Windows. But it's not the worst part of Windows. They're getting worse. 6.2 is going to give you the same crap I have been dumping on Windows on for 6 months. Annoying notifications to donate. Now, for clarity, number one, The maintainer of the distribution can turn it off. So your distribution may not have this at all. Number 2, you as the user can turn this off also. So you can go in there and you can switch it off. Number 3, it will only show right now 1 time per year. Unfortunately, they picked the stupidest time to do that, and that is December. You know, when everyone is going into debt up to their eyeballs, buying Christmas stuff, donations across the board, except for like ministry stuff where people get in the end of year, many donations go down at the end of the year because people are spending money over on like Christmas stuff. I'd say it might be better to push it into September, October, because it's still close enough to the end of the year that people looking for tax deductions will have that a little bit more in their mind. But it's not like, hey, in December when everybody else is asking for donations and then every other thing you're doing is asking for donations. But my fundamental problem, the reason I have an absolute critical, non-compromising problem with this nonsense is because it's doing the same thing Windows is doing. I am in the middle of working. Your operating system is not supposed to get in your way. All of a sudden, I see a notification. It's not, you have a new message. It's not, you have some critical thing. It's not, you have an appointment coming up. You're working, you get a notification, hey, donate to us. Now, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know. I am in the extreme minority because every single comment I've read is all praising the idea. I think this is utterly ridiculous. I think it's an idea of the distribution starting to get in the way, or the desktop getting in the way of the user. This is nonsense. Now, yes, I'm going to say this. If you are using Plasma on a regular basis, you better be contributing to that project in some way, whether it's financially, submitting bug reports, spreading the word, helping answer questions on forums. You should be doing something for that. Absolutely. I agree. I agree that any distribution needs to come up with a way to receive donations. I agree. Okay, now what they've said is on the original welcome screen on Plasma, there is a spot that tells you about donations, but that doesn't work as well because you've just installed it. Unless it's the 50,000th time you've installed it, you are still testing if you like it or not. Some people actually said in the comments it would be really good if in the settings panel somewhere, they would have a donate to Plasma section. I'm okay with that. That would be fine. It's in the bottom of the settings. Hey, don't learn how to support us button for that. I'm cool with that. That's fine. But when you're starting to do a notification, because a notification is supposed to notify you about an event. It's supposed to notify you of a calendar event, notify you of a new email, notify you of something important, because a notification breaks your concentration for a brief moment. I'm hard at work. I'm watching. Boom, notification, donate. Nope. Very good way to assure I will never donate to your project is to start giving me notification pop-ups. Now, again, once a year, you can turn it off. Here's what it looks like. So it's literally exactly like the Microsoft pop-ups for OneDrive. I'm kind of getting PTSD here. But it does have a donate to KDE. There's a donate button. There's a no thanks button. There is a lot of discussion in the comments saying maybe you should add more information or something else to it. So they're not over aggressive with it. 1 time per year. Okay, whatever. This isn't enough for me to say I'm never using KDE again. I'm calling out the stupidity. I might be the lone voice in the desert calling out stupidity, but I still got to call it out because my integrity demands it. Okay, this is a stupid idea. It really is. Let me know in the comments how off I am. But again, it's like this guy says, I know the messages like this can be controversial. The change was carefully considered. We tried our best to minimize the annoyingness factor. It's small, unobtrusive, and has no matter what you do with it, you click the button, close it, etc. It goes away until next year. That's all good. Okay. It is implemented in the KDE daemon module, which means that you can, the distributions can disable it. The user can permanently disable it. You can disable it in the system settings notification page. So go to systems notifications to disable it. It's accessible from the configure button in the notification header. They've done everything right here. I mean, I can't criticize how they're implementing it. That's fine. So here's the basically the FAQs. Of course, the first one, I think you're going wrong. People hate pop-ups, and this is going to turn them off. Yep, amen. Okay, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to just simply back out of a website if you start giving pop-ups. Now you're doing it on the desktop operating system. This is like, no, this is ridiculous. So there you go. KDE shouldn't need to pay people directly. Okay, and most of this crap I disagree with. It's like, okay, yeah, KDE needs it. KDE needs the donations. If you're using it, you should support it. Any project, if you're using it, you should support it. This is, in the Welcome Center. They do have it in the Welcome Center. They say it's not useful. I love the idea of putting it somewhere like the settings panel, because people will go into the settings panel. You'll see it there. Put it somewhere prominently in there, maybe right in the middle with a different color, something that will catch somebody's attention, but it's there when they're doing something in the settings panel. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with a notification, because if you saw the Windows video I did on Wednesday, this was from like last year. So I was like, hey, did your latest Windows update enable OneDrive? Because my kid's OneDrive is turned on. Well, you must have accidentally turned it on the notification pop-up. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay. So there's my thought. I know it's a controversial thought from a lone voice, a crazy guy out here in the desert, based on all the comments I read on every website about this. But that's my idea. No, this is a stupid idea. But if you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. I mean, I'm okay with that. That's cool. If you want to help support the channel, you can jump on over to the locals page, switchedtolinux.locals.com. Our short story series will be back, or should be back in September, although I am considering adding essays to each one of the short stories about the creation of that short story. So the book might be delayed a little bit more. I have most of it done. We're still working on a few other things. I should have most of the stuff carried out. So stay tuned for more information on that, which will be announced on the supporter pages. Of course, you can get the audiobooks and the text version of the short stories over on the locals page. You can also participate in the Thursday show or the after live hangout if you want to as well. With that, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.